Hi, welcome to the session. Sorry we're running a little late, but we'll jump right to it and get started. We have this very distinguished panel today. I'm moderating the session. Why? No, I'm moderating the session because I'm a huge believer in the value of diversity in business innovation, and I think it's something that we're all going to have to come to terms with in the years to come. Really looking forward to those intersection of ideas that come from diverse thinking, which we're going to need. And I think it's really critical and really, really important business issue, not just the social issue that we need to deal with. And so we have some great guests here today. We're going to kind of try to talk about that. First of all, we have Felicia. Right here? I do.
No, I didn't say that.
We were together yesterday. Felicia, and we have Karen, and we have...
Francesca.
Yes, sorry. So what I thought I'd do is let each of you ladies introduce yourself, tell the audience a little bit about what you do and why this issue is important to you, and then we'll take it from there.
So I'm Felicia Asiedu. I'm a senior marketing manager at Cvent Europe. We have a stand over there if you want to go and talk to us. Cvent runs event technology and also venue finding technology. I'm also one of the co-founders of the Diverse Speaker Bureau. We find speakers for events based on their topic, not their diversity, but it just so happens that the people in our bureau are all diverse in one way or another. And this topic is important to me because it's just something that I've been championing a lot and speaking about a lot over the past couple of years. And I also say that Cvent gives me that flexibility to bring it up at a very senior level and talk about it in front of an audience like this. So that's why I'm here today.
There you go. Great.
How do I follow? Can you hear me? Yeah.
How
do I follow that? I mean, I'm Karen. I'm from Sleek Events, and I'm the relationship director there. I'm actually quite new at Sleek, so I've only been there. This is my second month. But my background is I'm an ex-corporate in-house planner. I've done corporate hospitality, event management. I ended up heading up the events team at Nationwide. For the last 7 years, after I left Nationwide, I was working for BDRC, if you know who they are. They're a research consultancy, and I was looking after hospitality, doing customer experience programs. So sending in auditors, doing lots of research, working with behavioral scientists. I'm now at Sleek. I'm looking after relationships for our customers and our suppliers, because relationships are so important to Sleek as they grow. I'm also a board member at Meeting Needs, the charity. So lots of things going on, but I am really passionate about our industry, and particularly I'm really focused on the changes since the pandemic, and I know that's just one thing, but I wrote a paper at the start of this year using all my knowledge from working at the research consultancy, and did a big research piece on all the changes in our industry since the pandemic, and all everything from tech right through to us as individuals, and what we're seeing and how that's changed, and we use some research methods in that. So what we're talking about today really feeds into that quite nicely.
Oh, now I know you were so suspicious of marketing data.
Yeah.
That we were talking about the other day.
Yeah.
You were saying, where did you get that data anyway? Yeah, exactly.
Lovely. Hi everyone, I am Francesca Rodriguez-Belli. I am the co-founder and web designer at BBR Web Design, where we help event professionals achieve their marketing goals by having a high-performing website, really. I'm also the podcast host of the Events Cast, which is a podcast dedicated about all things event marketing. We talk about anything to help, to level up the marketing of your events. Why this topic is important for me is because I think we are truly right now in a moment that we need to be running better our events for the audience we have and for the audience who to come. As new generations are starting to become more our new audiences, I think we need to be doing better experiential events, and I think that to achieve that we need more. We need a change internally within our teams. I think we need more diverse people, being from different backgrounds, being at different ages. I think we need to bring newer people into our teams to get their ideas to be able to create these events for the future, for our future audiences, and yeah.
That's great. Really interesting. And actually, it leads on to one of the questions that I really wanted to kick off with, which was yesterday there was a session that you did with Gabby Austin Brown, a really interesting session where we went into work groups, and we talked about this issue and why it was important, and how we communicated in business, and what our priorities are, and all that sort of. It was really, really interesting. But I think one of the interesting points that people were making in this discussion was, in 2019 at IBTM, it wasn't even on the agenda now there's 5 or 6 sessions on this issue of diversity, equality, and inclusion. Why now? Why now all of a sudden is the events industry, which is historically renowned for its lack of diversity, why now has it become such a big issue? Why do you believe that?
I mean, I could give you a really obvious answer. George Floyd. I mean,
Oh yeah, okay.
it is, and I hate saying it like that, but I think, it was at a time where, we were at that point where we were watching our phones, we're watching what's going on in society. I sometimes say to people, I feel massively overwhelmed, even from a mental health perspective, about the amount of information that I can go and gather just like that. I know what's going on in a small town in Uganda just as much as I know what's going on in my own street, probably more in the world than I know what's going on in my own street. I don't know what's happening with my neighbors, but I can see everything. And I think that was that George Floyd era where people could see and make a decision and say, that doesn't look right to me. What you've just done there does not look right to me. And we could all get behind that. That doesn't look right. And suddenly, it's not just that, but that accessibility of like knowledge and information has made us go, this is not right. And we can question practically everything. And I think that has been something that during the pandemic we had the time to do.
Yeah.
We were at home, we were bored, and we were just, information at our fingertips. And it has just galvanized us to do something a bit different coming out of the pandemic.
One of the things that I saw in my research was, we spoke to lots of event planners, whether they were agencies or in-house corporates, and we spoke to everybody in the industry, really. We did lots of interviews, and I saw this pattern where before the pandemic, and sorry to keep honing in on that, but all these areas, such as diversity, but other things as well that are really important to us now, which should have been important a long time ago. They were all individual silos. Diversity was there, but it just never came to the forefront. And during the pandemic, businesses had to repurpose. As individuals, we did. How many of us reassessed our own personal goals and thoughts and questioned ourselves and our beliefs? It was a real time where we did that, and businesses did that too. And I think it really fast-forwarded all of these areas, including sustainability. I mean, you name it, all the hot topics that we talk about that we should have been doing something a long time ago about. It fast-forwarded and it made us do it. And I really feel like it kind of pushed us along because we had time, we repurposed and we thought about it, and we've come back bigger, better and stronger.
Yeah.
Do you think it might also have to do with a younger audience?
I mean, personally, I think it does have to do with a younger audience. I think, not to say anything about the older audiences, but I mean, I think with the reach, like Felicia was saying, that we have all this information nowadays, the younger audiences have been brought up with this and they can see all this, what's happening, and they're more opinionative, they have all these, and they want to have a say in the world, and they are coming into the world with all these new ideas and things, and they want change. They're eager for things to change because it's what they've been seeing on the media. They've been consuming all these terrible stories for years, and they want to be the change in the world. And to bounce off what we were saying of the pandemic, and then it gave us all a long time to be at home rethinking of our own personal values. And I think everyone has come out of that time with something closer to their hearts than it was previously, just because they had the time. Let it be diversity, sustainability. There's all these topics which people could actually spend the time in thinking about and find a new passion for. And yes, I do think it is a lot of the new generations and of this time that we could consume it.
Yeah, and that's great because young people that are witnessing this now don't know any different, and that's exactly how it should be. And isn't that great? And if we invest in those people and we believe in those people, and we were talking on the call when we had before when we were preparing, we were saying how important it is to believe in younger people coming through the industry and where they are now and what they can bring. And let's not just always focus on the people with the most experience. Actually, let's believe in young people that are experiencing all the things we've just been talking about.
Yeah.
Firsthand.
But the challenge there, as we uncovered yesterday in our session, people said that their top challenge they felt in the room when it comes to making those types of changes was stakeholder management. So here we are talking about young people, new generation, they've got such things to say, and they're at the forefront. But the people that make the decisions, the senior stakeholders, don't really look like that new generation of people that are coming in. So I think that is a major challenge, and that's one of the things we tried to solve for yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we see this a lot, and we're seeing it in the events industry even now. Change is hard. It's really hard. It's really hard to think of new ways of doing things, to do things differently. And also because, look, we're in business. So, ultimately, there's business values that need to be achieved and accomplished, and even sometimes doing the right thing is not necessarily the most profitable thing, or doing the right thing is not necessarily the most efficient thing, and all those kinds of issues. So, doesn't it seem like there has to be some impact on businesses that motivate them at the highest levels in the business to see diversity as a business opportunity versus a social issue that they need to sort of comply with? And what do you think? What do you feel about that? I mean, how's your businesses? How have they been impacted?
I don't think they've been impacted enough. I don't feel like businesses have seen the direct impact. There's no fining that's happening to say, hey, you're not diverse enough, so you're not going to get a fine. But what you just kind of said there, they're not seeing that profitability. We know that having a more diverse makeup of your workforce yields more profitability, but it's not easy to see. And so if they can't see it, they say, well, we're going along this trajectory. This is a side hustle, really, essentially. We're going to take care of some sustainability. We're going to do a bit of diversity on the side. Who's going to do that? Have we got some junior employees that are kind of vaguely interested in this? Can you just form a committee and just look after it? Tick that box. Fantastic. I need to make money. And they can't see how these things should intersect.
Right.
And this should yield better, bigger profits, more money. That's really difficult. And like I said, because no one's getting fined, there isn't anything. I think sustainability is going to get us to the point where actually there will be fines. I think that's going to happen in the future, that there will be fines if you do not adhere to, the carbon output of the size of your business, say. I think that's going to happen. But I don't see a clear path to you are not diverse enough, you've been fined. That's just, I can't see that for now.
Just following on from what you were saying, facts and figures are so important, and obviously I've learned that through working at a research consultancy. And those guys that are sitting at the top C-suite, whatever you want to call it, the business stakeholders, they need facts and figures. If you can't go to them and say, actually, by doing this, you will see this in your business, this will be the outcome, and a proven model. So, it's not going to be interesting. But are we even there yet? I don't know. Is that something we can do and prove? Perhaps we're not that far along yet.
Right.
But there has to be a fundamental change at that level, and they have, it has to come from the top. I believe.
Yeah.
One of the lovely things I've seen at Sleek is a great example, and I really think this is starting to change, not just in our industry, but recruiting differently. So it's not specifically about a job spec and a certain tick box type of person that we need. It's just about the right persona, the right being. That's how I got my job at Sleek. I had a chat. What are you about? Who are you? What do you love? What are the things that you fight for? We had that talk. We need that in our business. We'll put that in the business. And what a lovely way to recruit. And I really think that will help with diversity naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just to bounce on both of those ideas, it is difficult sometimes, why to change something when it's not broken. I think that's why we've got stuck a lot in the industry, in the events industry, of doing, even until the pandemic came, we were so behind. We had all this technology, all this potential to do things differently. We just didn't because, it worked, and higher levels are the ones making the calls. Well, it works, so why change anything? And I think with this topic, we're stuck there too. And like you said there with data, I think it's a very important piece, and the recruitment area. And I think from a lower level, if you're in that position, what I think we can do is really be the advocates to finding those people, and really be, I was thinking for example, I'm in the marketing department. What new skills do I think I need in my department, and really be pushing those towards the recruitment. So for example, if I'm maybe in a social media area, I want to do things differently. I might need someone that controls TikTok. That's probably not someone that has 30 years experience. If I'm looking for a IG or a TikTok experienced social media manager. So with, things we can do, I think we need to find areas which we can push forward to the recruitment team to find these new people with these new skills, and maybe they're not just younger, but also with transferable skills from different industries, which we can bring into our industry. But I think we have to become the creative people to say, okay, what change do I want in my department? What would I like to be seen doing different? What skills do I need for that? And then feeding that into the recruitment team to hire those, and then getting the pull off, I guess, from the upper management, from the higher levels, to bring those people in, really. But I do think there's a piece we can all do to push to bring in, to see that change.
And it's funny that you mentioned TikTok there. my mind automatically goes to, if I'm thinking of a business and I think of the marketing department, I think of a TikToker, I'd be like, okay, a young person's going to do social media. But what I think a lot of businesses fail to realize is that person that thinks like that will think like that about content. So I need a content experience manager, say. I don't necessarily, which you were talking about earlier about, job changes in the roles and titles, rather than saying, right, I want a social media expert that can do TikTok, who's naturally probably going to be a younger person. Why don't I think I actually need a content, creative experiences person who thinks about short, snackable content, because that's actually what you're making on TikTok. It's more engaging, it's fast-paced, it's lively. I need that across my events. I want to take this video that's being recorded, chop it up and make it snackable. I like that clip. I like that 30 seconds. I can make it into a podcast. I need someone who thinks like that. And that is a broader way of looking at someone with that kind of experience than I need a TikToker. That's fine, but you're pigeonholing me as though I can't be strategic.
Yeah.
I can still be strategic and I think like that,
There's an interesting point that you make about post-pandemic and younger generation of employees that we're trying to recruit with different skills, and that's really, really important. And I think it's kind of, there's a lot of people out there who are saying millennials and Gen Z in particular care about where they work. They care about the behavior of the company and the agency they work for, and they're looking for certain standards of behavior there. And do you feel that in your recruitment process, that it's much more difficult to recruit people?
I mean, I think employer branding is a very important part of the recruitment process, and I think whoever's not really thinking of this, of what your company's showing and what your values are, I think that a lot of people are looking for a meaningful job nowadays, not just a job they're doing, not just in the industry they're doing, but they're looking for a workplace which they can feel they can feel that they feel in, and that they're doing the bigger good and not just doing it because it's their job, not just forced doing it. So I do think it's important to look at more.
But we were talking yesterday about this in the sense that, they were saying there are agencies, for example, that are doing all kinds of really good work in the area of DEI, and they have implemented policies and practices. They've renamed their HR director, as the head of inclusion. They've done all these kinds of things. They're still having a hard time recruiting. Yeah. They're still having a hard time finding younger people who want to join the events industry. Is that because of diversity, or is that because of the events industry?
I think we are at that moment where we're in a perfect storm of lots of different things happening. There's a general workforce issue anyway right now. It's not just the events industry. It's really difficult to recruit people. I know, especially we're based in London, lots of people went home during the pandemic. Like they said, I'm not going to sit in my tiny flat paying high rents. The rents are going up. There's just a massive issue in general economically at the moment.
And of course, the Brexit, everyone.
Brexit.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's just,
in the UK specifically.
It's blowing up. So there's all of that to contend with. But I will say, my most recent employees that I interviewed and recruited, they were interviewing me. I mean, they very wary about the roles that they were about to take on, and they were asking deep questions about your culture and working practices and flexible working. And I know if I didn't really come at those with good answers, I'm going to lose really potentially good employees. The other side to that, and I'll stop talking, is that events industry thing. We were all saying, I didn't know this thing existed. I didn't know what the events industry was. The events industry probably wouldn't have enticed me, because I wouldn't have understood what you meant by that. And I said this at an MPI event last year, actually, that I think we as an industry have a better job to do of explaining what is this. It's not about washing pots and then you go up in hospitality. It isn't that. There's a trajectory that's actually really good for you in your career. So I think we've got a job to do there of explaining why this is a good industry to join.
Oh gosh, I've got a million things to say on all of those. I don't know where to start. One thing I want to say is I actually think we can take this as a positive, and we're really fortunate in this industry because we haven't necessarily been seen as a profession in the past, and we could have that argument all day, like whether that is now or not, or whether we're marketing or whatever. But actually, doesn't that give us an opportunity to create these roles? And us all here, do that. Go back to our teams and say, we don't just need an event manager. We need somebody that, just like you were saying, much broader. What's the skill? And I mentioned about how Sleek recruited me and how that was like a very different process. So these are all things that I think we can take on board and we can just inject straight into our industry. And we are actually quite fortunate enough to be able to do that. But definitely one of the things we did see post-pandemic, again, in our research is the job title names. And we were talking earlier about how diverse diverse are job titles. I mean, I'm relationship director. What does that mean? It's so broad. It was made up, and that is a great thing because it fitted my skills. But just going back to what I was saying, when in the pandemic, instead of event teams, the event manager or the event teams, they had to really transition to, we're employee engagement now, or, we're now sitting under the marketing banner for whatever reasons, whether that was just because it was about finances and had to go and squeeze and be under a different budget or something. But, certainly we have seen that the sort of name or title has changed from not just being an event planner or whatever fits in that to something much broader, which I think is great and is a positive thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally think we're in a really exciting time right now for this. I know it's a challenging time, and it is for our whole industry, and it's a challenging because the past few years and all the change right now, and the lack of people right now out there to hire. But at the same time, with this, there's all these new roles which we need in our company. I think there are all these new roles appearing, community managers, data, someone specific about data, an event technologist. We have all these new roles in our industry that, like you were saying, that I think it's really the time to look internally and look at what are these roles and where can we get them from, and really take advantage of that. People, when they come to your company, they may be interviewing you because they are passionate and they want a job that has meaning for them, and that probably means that they're going to stay along with you longer. And if you also invest back in your people and you really take the time to, because I think so many times with recruitment we do something really bad that is just, we need someone fast, especially in the events industry. We're so fast moving, we need someone now. Maybe don't spend enough time to define that job. You end up going here, there, doing all these different
recruitment.
Reactive recruitment. And maybe just take the time to look internally, look what maybe new skills you need and where you can find them from, and look at other industries, what have transferable skills which you can bring into your company. And do not really just thinking obviously thinking of diversity and bringing that in, but thinking of that in all ways. Where do you get these new people from? And just being a bit creative in the way we treat people.
It's almost like reinventing the language that we use to describe things a little bit that make diversity more attractive in a sense, and something that's a business priority. I was just telling them a story a few minutes ago out there. I used to work for a big corporate. I worked for a big agency, but we had a big corporate client, and I spent so much time in their building that I actually had a pass that I could just scan in, and we used to have a thing called the CEO test. And it was, if you ever got in the elevator with the CEO and he looked at your badge and said, "What do you do for my business?" Never say events. Always say marketing or lead generation or upselling or anything other than events, because he would think, or she would think, events, that cost me money. That's not delivering value. And I think in some ways we have the same language barrier when we talk about DEI lots of times. We haven't learned how to talk about DEI in business language so that senior executives understand the value in terms of their business by moving in that direction. And it's in particular, there was an article that just came out a couple of weeks ago where they were talking about the new generation of employees are about people first, not profits first. Eek. That really hasn't changed in the business world, right? So I think translating the whole DEI into why it's good for business from using business language is still a hurdle that we need to overcome.
I agree. And you almost hit the nail on the head just at the end there, where you say, people first, not profit first. Some people want to do profit first. And then I've seen it written as people versus profit. Now that makes it seem like there's an argument here. There's a fight of it's either people or profit. So you either do good and be poor, or you make money and you have to be a rubbish organization. Right. It just doesn't make sense. It should be almost like people equals profit, profit equals there needs to be this even kill. And that's where we look at, those equitable moments, like how is everybody winning here? How is society winning? Because that's what, when you look at the SDGs, those sustainability goals, look up SDGs if you don't know what they are. There's lots of them. I can't reel them off. The idea is that everything's equitable, that everybody wins. By this event coming to this city wins, ideally. The people that have come, you take something away, you win. The businesses that have come, they win. That is what we should be striving for. So it's a very equal world that we live in, and we know that it's not equal. Unfortunately, the world has inequalities, and that's where when you hear the DEI, the E is that's what it means. We can't mold these things together and say, oh, I'm diverse, great. No, you have to be inclusive too, and if you're inclusive, it means that everybody's equitable, everyone gets that same level. So I think it's that language that somehow needs to translate and say, this equals money, and that's what you're making. Aren't we good, you know?
Yeah.
I was just thinking, not necessarily thinking from a business perspective there and the financial outcome, but just going back to what you're talking about around the language and, you know, what our roles are, whether we're scared to say what we do to somebody that we think is really important, whether they look at us like we're a cost. I think for all of us, it's really important that we bang the drum about who we are, what we do, because this goes right back to the issue about not having enough people in, you know, the resource problem. You know, yes, it is a cross sector, but if it's a cross sector, we're fighting for those other sectors that are a bit more sexy, that pay more money. You know, we need those people here. We need good people, and we're all great people. That's what makes this industry fantastic. You know, we're all here having the best time. So I think, you know, if we take it back a step, this is all about everybody having a responsibility to get, whether they're young or old, retrain, whatever, see those skills across the board and talk about, you know, how we can be diverse, how we can grow and get good people into our industry. That's going getting behind apprenticeships, going into universities, you know, encouraging people to cross-skill from other sectors, you know, because actually you'd be great in this industry, you would really bring something. And for me, I think we could all do that a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also like, because obviously there's an issue, like there's the clear topic of bringing new people in, but I do think like there's also a wider conversation of how can we make it more, you know, more inclusive within our whole company with the people who are already working there, and how can we really knock down the walls and break a bit that traditional hierarchy of these are the people who talk, these are the people who action, these are the people, like, how can we maybe like take advantage of what we already have within our team and bring out the ideas what everyone has, and maybe that's across different levels within the same departments, and it's maybe between different departments. It's like I was once stuck doing a marketing plan, and I decided to do a brainstorming session, one of the lovely creative, you know, you put all post-its on the notes. And first I did it with my marketing team, and it was great, you know, you give suddenly everyone a voice, but then I decided to open up like the whole team. Sales, HR, the directors, and obviously it depends you know, how big your team is, you could do it in different ways, but suddenly all these ideas came out from these people. Like, you wouldn't think to go and consider to ask maybe to the HR person, well, you know, can you think of a campaign on, you know, an email marketing campaign or a social campaign or something? But suddenly they also live in a world which they are seeing social media, they're seeing all these things, and they have something to say, things that they like, things they don't like. So maybe it's about opening also, you know, allowing people within our company to have more voices, to feed within.
Almost flexing skills.
Yeah, flexing skills. And I
Interesting
mean, it's not asking the salesperson to do my, you know, my social media, but it's just like asking more opinions and having more conversations internally to bring diversity of thought across different positions in our internally.
Intersectional thinking. Yeah. Right, exactly. The Medici effect.
Yeah, and it's about also allowing other people to have voices. Many times, you know, for companies, there's lower level. Sometimes they have all these great ideas that we crush them because we don't allow them to have the voice, or we don't allow them a safe place to share their ideas. And maybe it's about allowing people to share their ideas more openly, more widely, and giving their opinion and listen to them openly, really.
Yeah.
So, Francesca, a lot of organizations have initiatives underway, but there are a lot of organizations out there saying, how do we get started? You know, how do we within our own organization make this an issue if our bosses aren't already talking about it? How do we raise the profile of the DEI issue, and how do we do that? Do you have any advice for the audience on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think like just continuing on that thing, what I was saying internally, I think internally it's just like being more open to have the conversations with your people. So even just like meetings, how can you do meetings in a more creative way, which allows everyone to be involved in them? So maybe it's not some one person running them, but thinking like more those scrum sessions, the brainstorming sessions of how can you like allow people to have a voice in your team first, not being that like I'm talking to you and you're listening and I'm going to share with you ideas and you say yes or no, but maybe rethinking of how you're doing things internally to just allow people to have wider voice.
Wider voice.
And then I think it's just like a thing of like really going back to the board and looking at what we need, looking at where we are right now, where we want to be in the whole events concept. Like we're talking about events need changing, they need to be more experiential, we need this change. What do we need to make that change in our events,
Well done.
Like Felicia was saying before, okay, we might want to clip the videos. Oh, we've known the whole year that we need to do that. We don't do that. Why? Because you don't have the person, you don't have the resources, you don't. So maybe it's the time now as we get to the end of the year to sit back on the board and say, all those great ideas I said I was going to do in my events of 2022, post-pandemic, in person, all these things I was going to do and I didn't end up doing. Why didn't I do them? Why did our company, why weren't they able to do them? What do we need to be able to achieve this, what we're doing in the next year? And put that in regards to people, really, instead of money-wise. And many times, like we were saying before, with the profit, many times we think, you blame it on the profit. Well, what do we need? What resources from a people stand do we need to achieve that? And then really go out and, map out some, like you're saying, like trying to bring all this together, map that out to profiles. And how come, the people that we have internally do those? What skills have we got remaining? And really try to put that conversation with up and saying, like, well, if we had people like this, take it to the upper level, these people can achieve this, and really try to get justification from above.
Little future thinking.
Mine's a really quick one, and I'll let Felicia have the floor. I believe in giving people opportunity. I wouldn't be in my position in my career, wouldn't have had all the fantastic experiences I've had in companies I've worked for, unless somebody gave me an opportunity. We have to trust people. We have to, we all grow. We'll sit in this panel and we'll make a mistake and we'll learn for the next one. If somebody gave us an opportunity to be on this panel, just everything we look at in our career, in the way that we work, how we want to include people in our businesses, give everybody an opportunity, and they will then grow, and that's how we will make that even. That's how we will get good people through the ranks. So, give an opportunity and take an opportunity.
Yeah.
So for me, I agree with that, and I wouldn't be where I am without the opportunities. I think if we really want to move the dial, because I hear your question is, what shall I do? I think every business and organization is driven by some kind of data. And when you do your board reports, quite frankly, they're often driven by data. They do want the context of the data, but that's what they need to start. So if they need the data, they need to gather the data, and they need to be honest and open with themselves to say, what does our data look like today? And the way they do that is through research. So they research internally in their organizations and say, what kinds of people do we have today? How are they functioning today? How do they feel today? So they have to do their surveys and ask really honest questions. I've seen some internal surveys, quite frankly, could have been chucked away, because you're only asking me questions to get you the answers to say we're amazing. Ask real questions in your surveys to your employees of how they actually feel about working in your business, and then map that together with the data of who you have in the business, and then see what it is you're trying to achieve, and see if all of that makes sense. Because without that data, without that baseline and benchmark, you don't know what you're shooting for. You're just trying to say you're more diverse and you've got this, that, and the other, and you have no idea what the reality is. And that is from age to ability to race to economic and social background to education, age, but I just think without that, you're shooting in a barrel. Like, you have no idea what you want to achieve. And I think people are scared of their own data. I know that because I've championed things internally in certain businesses before, and they're not ready. And they're kind of saying, we'll do that, we'll look into that. And then they put out surveys, BS.
Yeah.
On the point of data and research, just because I fly the flag for that, make sure if you're going to do research, do it properly. We fly around just unbelievable stats sometimes, whether it's in our industry or just on social media, and they're not always necessarily true, or they haven't been researched properly. So as these ladies have said, if you want to find out things, do your research, but if you don't work for a data company which can collect data really well and properly, there are companies out there that can guide you, or even look on Google at like models of how to properly research and you know, just simple things like you can't guide people to answer things on a survey. And so yeah, please make sure you do your research properly and don't fly around figures that have just been plucked out of the air by a survey that you think.
We talked about that yesterday. We were
right.
talking about where is the most reliable, authoritative source of information on this, and it wasn't clear really to many people.
No.
And they were saying they rely a lot on industry publications, and it's a lot of event company sponsored research, which obviously tells the story they want to tell. So it really is difficult in many cases to find the hard data that you could take to your board and say, look at this. You know, here's how companies increase their profitability through diversity. It's really hard to do that.
I tell you, I have a dream.
I
I do. I was saying it in the session yesterday. I know that's the I have a dream speech. But I do. I have a dream that like we have one board. There was a great association, EVCOM, that said they have a shadow board, and that shadow board advises the board on how they should behave and what they should be thinking about, what they should do. And I wish there was one board for our industry that could advise all the other boards of all the associations of what we should be doing and what the benchmarks are and what the goals are, so that they can then advise the industry and then businesses have that authoritative source to go to. Because I will agree, it's confusing. I said this, if you sat here and asked me today, what do you want? I couldn't give you a straightforward answer. I might give you an individualistic answer or my own organization answer, but I couldn't really tell you what I want for this whole industry. I'm not sure. So I think we need to get to that point of what do you want? When do you want it?
Yeah. I think the point you were making earlier is a really good one because we are in this period where we do have an opportunity. But I think, as you were saying, it's a great time to be in this industry because there is the opportunity to start thinking about change, and that's a very positive thing. But and part of it is we need to start envisioning the future. We need to start, we have to have some precognition about what the future might look like for our industry, and what we might need to be successful, and start to make those decisions now to ensure our success down the road, design our own future, if you will.
Yeah, I think we're at a time that we need to be brave and we need to be risk takers and we need to like really break the mold of, we continue doing the things we have and we continue recruiting the same people we have because that's what we've done up to the moment, and we continue having the same skills in our industry because that was someone leaves a position, we hire for that position they had, and that's been going on for the last thousands of our business, and we don't bring new people in and new skills in because we just continue looking at what we have done, because I mean change is scary. It scares us, but we are at a moment a moment of change in the world and within our industry, and with that our team needs to change. So I think we just need to be a bit brave to go out and say we're gonna take the data, we're gonna do the resource, we're gonna look at, I mean, obviously, especially when it's not as clear of what data you can, but like find the data, but at the same time, we might take a risk. And I mean, that's not of hiring a whole new skill base for your team, but maybe with a new role, well, we're gonna try it out. We're gonna give it a chance. And I think it's also about looking at not just maybe within our industry, we're all struggling within our industry right now, taking that data for like, who do you look at, what's doing, something better. So obviously looking at people that are doing things differently, I think, more than doing them the same as us, but doing the events in a different way than us, but also looking at other industries. I think looking at other industries and what their skill set looks like, it can really help us. Like, like big e-commerce, for example, they're pioneers of like ruling the world right now. Teams, there's so many big people right now that we can look at what their skill set looks like and think like, well, how can one of those roles that we might not even consider in our industry, how can that change what we're doing? So yeah, for me, I think it's just we're in a moment that we need to take risks, we need to be brave, and we need to just try to do things differently if we want change.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, that was a great point, my favorite, in fact. So I just want to say thank you to tremendous panel here. With leaders like this in our business, I'm feeling a lot more confident about its future, and I hope you are too. If there are any questions that are burning questions, you can feel free to ask them now or talk to the speakers directly. But thank you all very much for coming. Have a great rest of your event. Thank you.